They played predator sounds in class. The human laughed and said, "It's just a cicada." The lecture hall of the Orion Institute hummed under dim blue lights, star charts spinning lazily across hollow walls, their soft glow tracing constellations from 47 star systems. The air felt heavy, charged with the quiet rustle of students settling into their seats, their anticipation sharp as a blade. Rows of sleek, curved desks gleamed, each equipped with neural pads for instant data access. But the room's focus was the central podium, where Professor Mira Ketch stood poised. Her insectoid frame, slender and precise, glinted faintly, her 6 limbs moving with a rhythm that matched the faint hum of her sonic sensor robe. Green-faceted eyes scanned the hall, catching every flicker of movement, every nervous shift. She exuded control, her presence a silent command for attention. Among the students, Lyra Court sat near the front, her crystalline body shimmering with nervous pulses of yellow light. Her translucent form caught the hollow wall's glow, refracting it into tiny rainbows that danced across her desk. She adjusted her photonic ring, a temperature-controlled device that kept her stable, but her colors betrayed her unease. Beside her, Marindel fidgeted with her portable water tank, a transparent rig strapped to her back. The semi-aquatic student's light blue skin glistened as she tweaked the pressure valve, sending a soft hiss through the air. Her visor fogged slightly, a sign of her rising anxiety as she glanced around the room. The other students mirrored their tension, some tapping neural pads, others whispering about the lecture's topic. In the back row, Evan Cole slouched in his seat, a stark contrast to the high-tech polish around him. His worn field jacket, patched from years of hiking Montana's rugged trails, looked almost defiant among the sleek uniforms of his classmates. His short brown hair framed steady eyes that scanned the room with the calm alertness of a man used to open skies and hidden predators. On his lap rested an old Earth tablet, its scratched screen a relic compared to the Institute's tech. He leaned back, one trekking boot propped against the desk's edge, his expression one of mild curiosity, like he was sizing up a new trail rather than facing a galactic lecture. Mira's voice cut through the hum, sharp and deliberate. Today we study predator acoustics, the roars of apex predators from across 47 star systems, sounds that have shaped survival doctrines for centuries. Her robe sensors pulsed faintly, amplifying her words into a low, resonant hum. The class stilled, Lyra's glow shifting to a deeper yellow, her crystalline form trembling slightly. Marin's tank bubbled as she sank an inch lower, her visor fogging fully now. The promise of predator roars, raw and untamed, sent a ripple of fear through the room. Evan's lips twitched, a faint smirk forming as he watched the others brace themselves, their reactions almost amusing to his grounded perspective. Mira tapped the podium's console, and the hollow walls dimmed further, plunging the hall into a twilight glow. First, the forest howl of Lita 3, she announced, her 6 limbs poised as if conducting an orchestra. A bone-chilling wail erupted from the speakers, a sound like 1,000 winds tearing through a frozen canyon. The class froze. Lyra's yellow glow flared, her photonic ring humming loudly as she gripped her desk. Marin sank deeper into her tank, bubbles rising frantically. A few students glanced at the emergency exits, their neural pads forgotten. The sound clawed at the air, relentless, until it faded into a haunting echo. Evan tilted his head, his smirk fading into a thoughtful frown. "That's just an elk in mating season," he muttered, his voice low but carrying a quiet confidence. A few heads turned. Lyra's included, her glow flickering as she tried to process his words. Elk? Mating? The terms felt alien, absurd against the terror still lingering in the air. Marin peeked over her tank's rim, her visor clearing just enough to reveal wide, uncertain eyes. Was he joking? Or was this human reckless, untouched by the fear gripping everyone else? Mira, standing rigid at the podium, didn't catch Evan's comment. Her focus was on the console, Her academic pride swelling as she watched the class's reactions, confirmed the power of her lecture. The student's fear was proof of her subject's weight, a validation of her expertise in xenobiology. She adjusted her robe, the sonic sensors recalibrating with a soft whine, and prepared the next sound. "The rift maw chitter of Andromeda," she said, her voice steady but laced with a warning. The hall braced itself, the air thick with dread. Lyra clutched her photonic ring tighter, her glow now a pulsing amber. Marin's tank hissed again, her hands trembling as she adjusted the valve. Evan leaned forward slightly, his tablet balanced on one knee, his eyes narrowing as if tracking a sound through a forest. The chitter screeched out, a grinding metallic cacophony that felt like knives scraping bone. Lyra's form cracked microscopically, a faint snap echoing as she glowed a panicked orange. The other students shifted, some clutching neural pads, others whispering about evacuation protocols. Marin sank fully into her tank, her visor fogged beyond visibility, her bubbles a frantic rhythm. The sound was chaos, a nightmare woven from alien worlds. "Well, that's just summer cicadas," Evan said softly, a chuckle breaking through his words. He shook his head, amused, his voice a stark contrast to the room's rising panic. Lyra turned, her orange glow flickering as she stared at him, bewildered. Cicadas? Harmless? The words didn't fit the terror clawing at her. Mira's faceted eyes snapped to Evan, her 6 limbs twitching with irritation. "Quiet, please," she snapped, her voice sharp but tinged with curiosity. Who was this human, laughing at sounds that had triggered base evacuations? Marine, still submerged, felt a strange pull. Was Evan fearless, or was he insane? Her tank's bubbles slowed as she watched him, his calm like a beacon in the storm of fear. The class whispered, their voices a mix of confusion and unease. Some checked the exits again, half expecting a real predator to burst through the hollow walls. Mira, determined to regain control, tapped the console again. "The death roar of the shadow links of Proxima," she said, her tone heavy with finality. The room tensed, Lyra's glow shifting to a deep red. Marin's tank hissing louder than ever. Evan's smirk returned, his steady eyes glinting with something like anticipation, ready to unravel another cosmic misunderstanding. The lecture hall's blue glow pulsed as the death roar of the shadow links of Proxima tore through the speakers, a deep, guttural snarl that rattled the air like a collapsing star. Red alarm lights flashed, casting jagged shadows across the hollow walls. Lyra Quartz's crystalline body flared a violent red, her photonic ring whining as hairline fractures spiderwebbed across her arms. Marin Dell vanished into her water tank, bubbles erupting in a frenzied storm, her visor a clouded blur. 2 students, their neural pads clattering to the floor, bolted for the exit, their footsteps echoing in the chaos. The sound wasn't just noise, it was primal, a threat that screamed of claws and teeth across 19 star systems. Evan Coles, slouched in the back, burst out laughing. The sound cut through the panic, loud and unapologetic, like a crack of thunder in a storm. "That's just a mountain lion having a bad day," he said, his voice carrying a grin that felt wildly out of place. Heads whipped toward him, Lyra's red glow flickering as she stared, her fractures trembling. Mira Ketch froze at the podium, her 6 limbs stiff, her green-faceted eyes narrowing to slits. "Excuse me?" she snapped, her sonic robe humming sharply, amplifying her irritation. The class held its breath, torn between the roar's terror and Evan's absurd calm. "Well, it's just a big cat," Evan said, leaning back, his trekking boot tapping the desk. He scratched his jaw, smirking. "Sounds like one I heard back in Montana, maybe a bit crankier." Lyra's glow dimmed to a confused orange, her mind grappling with the idea that this galactic nightmare could be a cat. Marin's face surfaced in her tank, her visor half clear, her wide eyes fixed on Evan. Her bubbles slowed. Was he mocking them? Or did humans live among monsters so casually? Her thoughts churned, torn between awe and disbelief at his nonchalance. Mira's limbs twitched. Her academic pride stung. This sound triggered 3 base evacuations, she said, her voice cold, precise. It's the apex predator of Proxima's shadow planes. You're saying it's... what, a pet? The class murmured, some students clutching their desk, others glancing at the still flashing alarms. Evan shrugged, his steady eyes meeting Mira's glare. Not a pet, just not a galactic demon either. And want to hear the real thing? He lifted his battered Earth tablet, its scratched screen glinting under the hall's lights. Before Mira could respond, Evan tapped the tablet, and a mountain lion's scream tore through the room, not from the Institute's speakers, but from his own device. The sound was raw, sharp, identical to the Shadow Link's roar, though cleaner, less distorted. The class gasped, a collective jolt. Lyra's glow shifted to a pale green, her fractures still, but her eyes wide with curiosity. She leaned forward, photonic ring humming softly. Marin's tank bubbled gently now, her visor clearing as she whispered, "It's the same." The room's tension cracked, replaced by a buzzing confusion. Okay, hold up," Evan said, chuckling. He swiped his tablet. "Let me show you some others." He played a honey badger snarl, a guttural rasp that made a student in the front row flinch. Then a hippo's bellow, deep and booming, followed by what he called an Australia compilation, a chaotic mix of shrieking koalas and hissing possums. The class's fear twisted into something else, a mix of awe and unease. Lyra's glow steadied, her curiosity blooming as she watched Evan's tablet like it held the galaxy's secrets. Marin's perspective shifted. From her tank, she saw the class's panic unravel, and a flush of embarrassment hit her for hiding so quickly. Mira's faceted eyes dimmed, her irritation giving way to a flicker of doubt. She adjusted her robe, sensors recalibrating. "These Earth sounds," she said, her voice softer, probing. "You claim they match our database?" Evan nodded, his smirk fading into focus. "Not just match. I'm betting your database got it wrong. Mind if I check the logs?" The request hung in the air, bold and direct. The class whispered, some still eyeing the exits, but most now clustered closer, drawn to Evan's calm certainty. Mira hesitated, her pride warring with her scientific instinct. Her limbs relaxed, robe humming faintly. "Very well," she said, stepping aside from the podium's data terminal. "Access granted, but tread carefully, human." Evan stood, his field jacket brushing the desk as he moved to the console, his hiker's gait steady, like he was navigating a forest trail. He scrolled through the metadata, his fingers quick but deliberate, tracing the Shadow Link's file's origin. Lines of code flickered on the holoscreen, revealing a name. Probe 017, an Orion survey probe from the 23rd century, linked to Earth's open media archive. "Whoa, here's the culprit," Evan said, his voice low, almost to himself. He tapped the screen, frowning. "Your probe tapped into Earth's old media files. Got a bad copy, stretched the frequencies, slapped on a scary label." Mira leaned closer, her eyes glinting as she read the logs. The class crowded around, their fear now a hungry curiosity. Lyra's green glow pulsed steadily, her fractures no longer spreading. Marin emerged fully from her tank, her visor clear, her voice barely audible. "So, there's no shadow links?" Evan grinned, his eyes glinting with the same spark he'd felt tracking game in Montana. "Nope, just a big cat with a bad attitude." The class exhaled, a collective release, though the red alarms still pulsed faintly. Mira's limbs softened, her robe's hum quieting. "I should have verified the source," she said, her voice low, almost lost in the room's buzz, but carrying a weight that silenced the whispers. The alarms flickered off, leaving the hall in a strange, fragile calm, as if the galaxy itself had paused to rethink its fears. The lecture hall's hollow walls pulsed faintly, their star charts dimmed as the class clustered around the data terminal where Evan Cole stood, his fingers dancing across the console. The red alarm lights had faded, but the air still crackled with tension. The students' whispers a low hum like static from a distant storm. Evan's field jacket brushed the terminal's edge, his steady eyes locked on the hollow screen, where lines of metadata scrolled in sharp, glowing text. Probe 017's logs unfolded, a digital trail leading back to the 23rd century to Earth's open media archive. His voice was calm, almost casual. This probe, it's been messing with your data for centuries. Grabbed Earth sounds, twisted them, called them monsters. Mira Ketch stood beside him, her 6 limbs rigid, her sonic robe emitting a faint, unsteady hum. Her green-faceted eyes glinted as she read the logs, her academic pride crumbling like dry leaves. "This cannot be," she said, her voice sharp but faltering. "The Orion database is the foundation of xenobiology. It's been verified across 47 star systems." Her words carried a defensive edge, but her eyes betrayed doubt, flickering like a signal struggling to connect. The class watched, their fear morphing into a restless curiosity, their neural pads forgotten on their desks. Evan tapped the screen, pulling up the Shadow Links file's origin. "Look here," he said, his Montana drawl steady. "Probe 017 used some old .omx compression, stretched the frequencies, made a mountain lion sound like, well, a galactic nightmare." He swiped his battered Earth tablet, playing the mountain lion's scream again. The raw, piercing sound matched the Institute's file perfectly, stripping away the distortion. Lyra Quartz, her crystalline form now a pale green, leaned closer, her photonic ring humming softly. Her fractures hadn't spread further, her glow steadying as curiosity overtook her fear. "It's identical," she whispered, her voice a mix of awe and disbelief. Marindel emerged from her water tank, her visor clear, her light blue skin glistening under the hall's lights. She gripped her pressure harness, her eyes darting between Evan and the holoscreen. From her perspective, the room felt different now, the panic unraveling like a loose thread. She'd hidden in her tank, certain of danger, but Evan's calm was infectious, making her feel foolish for diving so fast. "So, you're saying there's no shadow links?" she asked, her voice small but clear, bubbles still trickling in her tank. Evan grinned, his eyes glinting with the spark of a hiker spotting a familiar trail marker. "Nope, just a big cat with a bad attitude." Ah, Mira's limbs twitched, her robe's hum softening as she processed the data. Her thoughts churned, a quiet storm of shame and clarity. She'd built her career on this database, taught entire semesters on its truths. Yet a human student had exposed its flaws in minutes. "I trusted the data," she said, her voice low, almost to herself. The admission hung in the air, heavy as the silence that followed. The class exchanged glances, their whispers fading. Lyra's glow pulsed brighter, her curiosity now a steady flame. Marin's tank hissed softly, her confidence growing as she stood taller, her visor reflecting the hollow screen's glow. Evan swiped the console, pulling up more logs. "Check this out," he said, his tone focused, like he was tracking game through Montana's forests. The probe tapped into Earth's media archive, grabbed random wildlife clips, mislabeled them as predators from Proxima, Lida 3, Andromeda. All of them. He played another clip from his tablet, a honey badger snarl, fierce and guttural. A student flinched, then laughed nervously as Evan added, "That's just a badger. Mean, but not exactly a star-eating monster." The class chuckled, the tension easing like a knot slowly untying. Mira stepped closer to the terminal, her eyes scanning the data with a scientist's precision. The .omx algorithm, It distorted the audio, she said, her voice steadier now, her pride giving way to curiosity. It auto-labeled Earth sounds as threats, and we built protocols around them. Her robe's sensors recalibrated, their hum aligning with her shifting mindset. Evan nodded, his smirk returning. Yup, your probe turned a cranky elk into the forest howl of Leda 3, spread fear across 19 colonies for nothing. Lyra's glow shifted to a soft blue, her fractures no longer trembling. She clutched her photonic ring, her voice hesitant but eager. Could other sounds be wrong too? The question sparked murmurs, the class now fully engaged, their fear replaced by a hunger to understand. Marin, standing fully out of her tank, added, yeah, like, what else have we been scared of for no reason? Her tone carried a mix of relief and embarrassment, her earlier panic now a lesson she wanted to unlearn. Evan leaned back, his field jacket creaking. Science means daring the data, Professor, he said, his eyes meeting Mira's. Want to keep digging? Mira's limbs relaxed, her robe's hum steadying. She nodded, a faint glint of respect in her eyes. Proceed, she said, stepping aside to let Evan lead. The class gathered tighter around the terminal, their neural pads lighting up as they began cross-referencing files, the room buzzing with a new energy. The hollow walls flickered, star charts spinning faster, as if the galaxy itself was waking up to a truth long buried under bad data. The lecture hall's hollow screen glowed with streams of data, 12 petabytes of audio records flickering like a digital river across the console where Evan Cole stood. His fingers moved swiftly, tracing Probe 017's logs with the same focus he'd used to track deer through Montana's forests. The class pressed closer, their earlier panic now a restless curiosity, their neural pads casting soft light on their faces. Lyra Quartz's crystalline form shimmered a steady green, her fractures still as she watched the screen, her photonic ring humming softly. Marin Dell stood outside her tank, her visor clear, her light blue skin reflecting the hollow wall's faint blue pulse. The room felt alive, buzzing with the promise of truth. Evan tapped the screen, pulling up the EDWAT OMX compression algorithm's specs. Here's the problem, he said, his voice calm but sharp, like a guide pointing out a hidden trail. This old probe used Parnad OMX to crunch Earth's audio files, stretch the frequencies, made a mountain lion sound like, well, a galactic death machine. He swiped his tablet, playing the clean mountain lion scream again, then toggled the Institute's distorted Shadow Links file. The similarity was undeniable, a raw snarl that had sparked fear across 19 colonies. The class murmured, some leaning over desks to see better, others tapping notes into their pads. Mira Ketch stood beside Evan, her 6 limbs poised, her sonic robe's hum low and steady, her green, faceted eyes locked on the data, her mind wrestling with a truth she'd never questioned. She'd built lectures, evacuation protocols, entire semesters on this database, yet it was unraveling before her. The algorithm auto-labeled these as threats, she said, her voice quiet, tinged with shame. We trusted it blindly. Her admission felt like a stone dropping into still water, rippling through the room. The students glanced at her, their respect unshaken, but their curiosity now sharper than their fear. Lyra's perspective shifted as she watched the data unfold. Her crystalline body glowed a brighter green, her fractures stabilizing as understanding replaced terror. The Shadow Links wasn't a monster, it was a mistake, a glitch from a centuries-old probe. She clutched her photonic ring, her voice soft but eager. So, the other roars, the ones from Leda 3, Andromeda, they're Earth animals too? Evan nodded, his grin easy. Yup, that forest howl? Just an elk looking for a date. The rift maw chitter? Cicadas in summer. Loud, but not exactly eating stars. Marin's tank hissed faintly as she adjusted her pressure harness, her confidence growing. No shadow links, she muttered, her voice a mix of relief and embarrassment. She'd submerged herself in panic, certain of danger, but Evan's calm was rewriting her instincts. She stepped closer to the terminal, her visor reflecting the data's glow. What else got messed up? She asked, her tone bolder now, her earlier fear a fading echo. The class nodded, their questions piling up, their neural pads buzzing with cross-references as they dug into the probe's logs. Evan swiped the console, pulling up a visual of Probe 017's data core, a 23rd century relic that had scraped Earth's open media archive. This thing grabbed wildlife clips, compressed them wrong, slapped on scary names, he said, his Montana drawl carrying a hint of amusement, turned a hippo's bellow into the abyssal roar of Kepler 9, got colonies building bunkers for nothing. He played the hippo's bellow from his tablet, deep and booming, and the class chuckled nervously, the sound now more familiar than threatening. Mira's robe hummed as she leaned closer, her eyes scanning the logs with a scientist's hunger. The probe, it accessed Earth's archive in the 21st century, she said, her voice steadier, piecing it together. It misclassified everything. Decades of xenobiology, built on errors. Her limbs relaxed, her pride giving way to a quiet resolve. She looked at Evan, not as a student, but as a partner in this unraveling truth. The class felt the shift, their whispers fading as they watched their professor grapple with her own oversight. Okay, so, what now? Marin asked, her visor glinting as she stood tall, her tank silent. The question hung in the air, drawing nods from the class. Lyra's glow pulsed blue, her curiosity now a steady flame. We fix it, right? Check every file? Her voice was firm, her fractures no longer a concern. Evan grinned, his eyes glinting with the spark of a challenge. Science means daring the data, he said, glancing at Mira. We dig deeper, cross-check everything. Make sure no one's scared of a badger for no reason. Mira nodded, her robe's hum aligning with her renewed focus. Agreed, she said, her voice carrying a new humility. We verify the source, all of it. The class buzzed, their neural pads lighting up as they began pulling files, their fear now a shared mission. The holowalls spun faster, star charts mapping 47 systems, as if the galaxy itself was watching. Evan leaned back, his field jacket creaking, his tablet resting on the console. Let's start with the big ones, he said, his tone light but firm. No more galactic demons, just noisy critters. The room exhaled, a fragile calm settling in, the truth a beacon in the fading shadow of fear. The lecture hall's door hissed open, cutting through the buzz of the class as Dr. Calder Vox strode in, his large frame filling the entrance like a sudden storm front. His deep voice boomed across the room, echoing off the holowalls. What in the stars is going on here? His piercing eyes swept the scene, landing on the clustered students around the data terminal, then on Evan Cole's battered tablet glowing faintly on the console. The psychological distress signal had pulled him from a meeting, and now he stood there, his dean's uniform with its Orion insignia crisp, his expression a mix of concern and authority. The room stilled, the neural pads hum fading as everyone turned. Mira Ketch straightened, her 6 limbs aligning with a soft click, her sonic robe's hum steadying. Dean Vox, she said, her voice calm but laced with the weight of revelation. We've uncovered an anomaly in the database. Probe 017 mislabeled Earth animal sounds as galactic predators. The shadow links. It's an Earth mountain lion. She gestured to the holoscreen, where the .omx compression log still flickered, exposing the glitch that had twisted facts across 19 colonies. Vox's eyes narrowed, his large hands clasping behind his back as he approached the terminal, his steps measured, like a strategist assessing a battlefield. Evan stood tall, his field jacket slightly askew from leaning over the console, his steady eyes meeting Vox's gaze without flinching. He tapped the screen lightly, replaying the mountain lion's scream from his tablet. The raw sound filled the room again, cleaner than in the Institute's distorted version, stripping away the myth. Vox listened, his expression shifting from concern to a spark of intrigue, his deep voice rumbling. Fascinating and problematic. This has implications for our entire xenobiology curriculum. He glanced at Mira, then at Evan, his mind already turning the error into opportunity, seeing reform where others might see failure. Lyra Quartz's crystalline form glowed a steady blue, her photonic ring humming softly as she watched Vox. Her earlier fear was gone, replaced by a quiet admiration for how quickly the truth had surfaced. She leaned forward, her voice clear. Dean, could other monsters be mislabeled too? Like the Rift Maw? Her question hung in the air, sparking murmurs from the class, their neural pads lighting up again as they nodded. Marindel, her water tank silent, added her voice, gaining confidence with each word. Yeah, we need to sort real dangers from just noise. Her light blue skin flushed slightly, her visor reflecting Vox's imposing figure. Vox nodded, his piercing eyes scanning the group, impressed by their shift from panic to purpose. Indeed, he said, his tone decisive, carrying the weight of leadership. This isn't just a glitch, it's a foundational flaw. He turned to Evan, his voice probing. You're the human who spotted this, correct? Suggest a fix? Evan scratched his jaw, his Montana roots grounding his response. Well, cross-reference everything with original sources. Use Earth's ecosystem as a baseline. No more building bunkers over badgers. His words drew a few chuckles, easing the room's tension, his calm a steady anchor. Mira's faceted eyes glinted, her humility deepening as she stood beside Evan. The probe's OMX distorted dozens of files, she added, her robe's hum aligning with her resolve. We've started digging, but it spans 47 star systems. Vox's expression softened, his optimism rising as he saw the potential in their unity. From his perspective, this chaos was a catalyst, a chance to rebuild the Institute's reputation on verified truth. He clasped his hands, his deep voice firm. Then we form a unit, dedicated to recalibrating the database and teaching survival based on facts, not fears. The class exhaled, their murmurs turning excited, their fear now a distant memory. Lyra's glow pulsed brighter, her curiosity fueling her nod. Marin adjusted her pressure harness, her voice stronger. I'm in. No more hiding in tanks over cicadas. Evan grinned, his eyes glinting with the thrill of a new trail. Sounds good. Let's make sure the galaxy knows a roar from a yawn. Vox's lips twitched in a rare smile, his authority blending with approval as he watched the group coalesce. He stepped to the podium, his presence commanding the room without effort. The Death World Calibration Unit, he announced, his voice resonating like a decree, co-led by Professor Ketch and Evan Cole. Mira's limbs stilled, her eyes widening slightly in surprise, but she nodded, her pride now channeled into partnership. Evan blinked, honored but unflappable, his field jacket a symbol of his grounded approach. The class cheered softly, their neural pads buzzing with ideas, the hollow walls spinning as if mapping a new course. Vox assigned resources on the spot, his decision swift. Full access to Probo 17's core, teams for reclassification across the systems. He looked at Lyra and Marin, his tone encouraging. Volunteers welcome. This is how we advance science. Through proof, not panic. The room hummed with energy, the students united, their earlier chaos now a foundation for change. Evan leaned against the console, his tablet in hand, ready for the next step, as the galaxy's myth began to crumble under the weight of truth. Dr. Calder Vox's voice echoed in the lecture hall, his large frame steady at the podium as he declared the formation of the Death World Calibration Unit. This will be our response, he said, his deep tone carrying a sense of finality, like a command sealing a strategic move. Co-led by Professor Mira Ketch and Evan Cole, tasked with reclassifying audiovisual data across 47 star systems. We'll use Earth's ecosystem as a model for survival training, facts over fears. The class shifted, their neural pads glowing as they absorbed the announcement, their earlier chaos now channeling into purpose. Vox's piercing eyes swept the room, his optimism a quiet force, seeing renewal in the midst of error. Evan Cole blinked, his field jacket creaking as he leaned against the data terminal. His mind raced quietly, surprise mixing with a deep honor, the kind he'd felt summiting a Montana peak after a long hike. His trails back home, with their hidden dangers and silent warnings, had prepared him for this, unraveling cosmic myths with grounded logic. "Well, me? Leading?" he said, his voice low, a faint grin breaking through. Mira's green-faceted eyes met his, her 6 limbs steadying with purpose, her sonic robe humming in alignment. She nodded, her pride now a focused drive for truth. "Together," she said, her tone humble yet resolute. "Your instincts complement my analysis." Lyra Quartz's crystalline form glowed with newfound confidence, her photonic ring humming softly as she stepped forward. "I'll assist," she said, her voice clear, fractures fully stable. The terror that had cracked her earlier was gone, replaced by an eager light. Marindel, her water tank silent, nodded beside her, determination etching her light blue features. "Count me in too," she added, her visor glinting. "No more reacting on instinct. I want to learn the real threats." Her caution lingered, but it was tempered now, shaped by Evan's calm and the group's unity. The class murmured agreement, some volunteering quietly, their fear evolving into excitement. Vox clasped his hands, his deep voice approving. "Resources are yours," he said, gesturing to the holoscreen. "Full access to Probe 017's core server, 12 petabytes of data waiting for recalibration." The screen flickered, displaying the probe's vast archives, a digital labyrinth of mislabeled files. Evan swiped the console, pulling up the first batch, his fingers deliberate. "We start small," he said, his Montana drawl steady. "Relabel the shadow links as Earth Mountain Lion, then branch out." "What curatum?" Mira leaned closer, her robe sensors recalibrating. "And integrate survival modules," she added. "Blend human field tactics with Orion protocols." The room hummed with energy, students clustering around the terminal, their neural pads syncing to the data core. Lyra's glow pulsed blue, her curiosity a steady pulse as she tagged a file. "This one, the abyssal roar. It's a hippo, right?" she asked, glancing at Evan. He chuckled, nodding. "Yup. Big, grumpy, but not exactly invading colonies." Marin tested a simulation on her pad, practicing roar assessments, her tank hissing faintly as she focused. "Patterns over volume," she muttered, echoing Evan's earlier words, her confidence building like a slow tide. Vox watched from the podium, his expression reflective, pride swelling as the Institute's flaw turned to strength. He'd expected a crisis to contain, but this was evolution, a shift toward verified science. "Report progress weekly," he said, his voice firm. "This unit will reshape how we view threats across the galaxy." The class nodded, their cheers soft but genuine, though a few still glanced nervously at Evan's tablet, as if the Earth sounds might spring to life. Evan quipped, his grin wide. "Next we'll teach why a quiet forest is scarier than a loud one." The room groaned, half laughing, the tension dissolving into shared humor. Mira's limbs moved with precision as she outlined the mission's phases on the holoscreen. "Phase 1. Reclassify core file," she said, her tone methodical. "Phase 2. Develop training based on Earth examples, instincts, evidence. Silence as a signal." Evan added, swiping his tablet to show a Montana trail holo. "Like this, listen for what's missing. A bird stops singing? That's your cue." Lyra's eyes widened, her glow shifting to a curious teal. "Silence. As danger?" Marin nodded, her visor fogging slightly with focus. "Makes sense. Water ripples before the splash. Hoi! The unit's formation solidified, volunteers assigning tasks, the lecture hall transforming into a command center. Vox stepped back, his large frame retreating toward the door, satisfaction in his stride. "Carry on," he said, his deep voice a final note. The students dove in, their pads buzzing, the hollow walls mapping recalibration paths across star systems. Evan stood at the center, his calm a beacon, his thoughts drifting to Montana's wilds, how a single track could reveal a whole story. Mira glanced at him, respect in her eyes. "Ready for this?" she asked. Evan nodded, his voice steady. "Born for it." The galaxy's spheres began to recalibrate, one file at a time. The Probe 017 database core thrummed with a low pulse, its vast server room bathed in blue light from rows of cooling fans and flickering data nodes. Evan Cole and Mira Ketch stood at the central console, their figures silhouetted against the glow of holoscreens displaying 230 years of archived audio files. Evan's field jacket hung loosely as he swiped through the interface, his fingers tracing paths like he was mapping a Montana trail. "Starting with the shadow links," he said, his voice steady, a faint grin tugging at his lips. "Tag it as Earth Mountain Lion. Simple fix, right?" Mira's 6 limbs moved precisely, her sonic robe humming in sync as she nodded, her green-faceted eyes focused. "Indeed, but the ripple effects across 19 colonies." They worked side by side, the console's hum blending with the faint whir of fans, the air cool and sterile. Evan pulled up the file, its metadata glowing in sharp text. "This one triggered evacuations," he muttered, shaking his head. "All from a cranky cat." Mira's robe sensors recalibrated, her voice soft but resolute. "We correct it now. No more false alarms." With a tap, the label shifted, the file's icon changing from a snarling beast to a simple Earth mammal silhouette. The system pinged confirmation, a small victory in the sea of data. Lyra Quartz hovered nearby, her crystalline form reflecting the server's glow, her photonic ring humming faintly as she processed auxiliary files. From her perspective, Evan's focus was mesmerizing, a calm force amid the digital chaos. She'd once cracked under fear, but now her glow was steady blue, her curiosity a quiet drive. "This batch, the riff maw chitter," she said, her voice clear. "Cicadas, yes? I'm tagging them." Evan glanced over, nodding. "Spot on, loud bugs, not galaxy eaters." Lyra's glow pulsed brighter, satisfaction warming her as she contributed, her earlier terror a distant echo. Marindel sat at a side station, her water tank strapped securely, her visor reflecting the survival simulator's holo display. She practiced assessing a roar, her fingers hovering over controls, no longer diving for cover. "Patterns, not volume," she whispered, echoing Evan's tactics. A simulated sound played and she paused, analyzing. "That's just a hippo." Her tank hissed softly, her confidence building like a rising tide, her instinctive fear now tempered by logic. She glanced at the team, warmth spreading as she saw their progress. Evans shared more field tactics, leaning against the console. "Listen for patterns, yeah? Silence often means a real predator's near." His voice carried the weight of Montana hikes, where a quiet forest signaled danger. Mira listened, her limbs adjusting as she integrated the insight. "Fascinating," she said, her tone thoughtful. "We'll blend this with Orion analytics, quantify the silence thresholds." She designed a curriculum module on the spot, her robe's hum aligning with her inspiration, turning human instinct into structured lessons. The unit's work spread quickly, holo communicators lighting up with requests from 19 colonies. "Updated files needed," one message read, from a distant outpost. "Our protocols are based on these roars." Evan chuckled, forwarding corrected batches. "Tell them the monsters are just noisy critters." Mira nodded, her humility deepening as she authorized the releases, her pride now in the fix rather than the original data. A holo news report flickered on a side screen, praising the unit. "The human who tamed the shadow links myth," the anchor said, showing Evan's image from the lecture hall. He scratched his jaw, smirking. "Well, didn't tame anything. Just set the record straight." Lyra laughed softly, her glow shifting teal. Marin paused her simulator, grinning. "You did more than that." The report highlighted the Institute's shift, colonies adjusting policies, fear-based drills turning to practical training. Vox oversaw from his office link, his deep voice booming through the communicator. "Progress looks solid," he said, his piercing eyes scanning their logs. His optimism grew, the Institute's reputation pivoting from error to innovation. "Keep pushing," Mira reported back, her tone confident. "First batch of 500 files relabeled. Symbolic, but the foundation." Evan added, "And the training modules are shaping up. Real survival, no myths." The climax built as they hit the 500 file mark, the console pinging a final confirmation. The team paused. The server room's hum, the only sound. Evan grinned, his eyes glinting. "That's it for today. Galaxy's a bit less scary." Mira's limbs relaxed, gratitude in her gaze. Lyra's glow steadied, peace settling in. Marin shut down her simulator, her tank silent, confidence firm. The unit stood united, the data core pulsing like a heartbeat, their work echoing across star systems, rewriting fear into knowledge. The lecture hall at the Orion Institute, once a whirlwind of flashing alarms and panicked whispers, now held a steady calm as the Death World calibration unit's first training session unfolded. The hollow walls spun softly with star charts, their blue glow casting a serene light over the gathered students. Desks were rearranged into clusters, neural pads humming quietly as participants settled in. Evan Cole stood at the front, his worn field jacket a familiar sight, his old Earth tablet propped on the podium. Mira Ketch moved beside him, her 6 limbs graceful, her sonic robe tuned to a gentle frequency. The air felt different, lighter, as if the galaxy's fears had been filed away like corrected data. Evan tapped the console, projecting a hollow of a Montana forest, its dense trees and misty trails shimmering in the air. "All right, let's dive in," he said, his voice warm, carrying the lulling rhythm of a storyteller around a campfire. "This is about quiet danger. Not the loud roars we fixed, but the silence that sneaks up." The class leaned forward, their eyes on the hollow, where virtual leaves rustled faintly. He paused, letting the scene breathe. "See here. Birds chattering then. Nothing. That's your warning. A predator's near, and it's not announcing itself." His words painted the forest alive, his Montana roots weaving through, turning abstract lessons into vivid paths. Mira stepped up, her robe sensors activating with a soft hum. "We've corrected the data," she said, her tone measured, humble. "Now accurate Earth sounds." She played a clip, a clean mountain lion scream, no distortion. The class nodded, familiar now, no flinches. "This is the baseline. Use it to build instincts." Her green-faceted eyes scanned the room, her partnership with Evan evident in her steady gaze. Lyra Quartz, her crystalline form fully repaired and glowing a serene blue, raised a hand. "What about Earth's silent predators?" she asked, her voice laced with genuine curiosity, her photonic ring humming softly. "Like the ones that stalk without sound?" Evan grinned or nodding. "Good question. Think owl, wings so quiet they strike before you hear." He adjusted the hollow, showing a shadowy bird gliding through the forest. The class murmured, neural pads scribbling notes. Marindel, out of her tank entirely, her pressure harness loose, chimed in. "Yeah, and water ripples can warn you before a sound does," she said, her light blue skin flushed with confidence. "Like in my Sims, feel the shift first." Her voice carried a warmth, her earlier caution now a tool, shared freely. The class engaged eagerly, questions flowing, their notebooks filling with real strategies, fear replaced by focus. Dr. Calder Vox attended quietly from the back, his large frame leaning against a desk, his piercing eyes watching with approval. He nodded as Evan demonstrated another scenario, the unit's work promising to reshape xenobiology across the galaxy. Vox's deep voice rumbled softly to a nearby student. This is progress. His optimism shone, the Institute's pivot from error to innovation a quiet triumph. Evan caught his eye, nodding back, the dean's presence a seal on their efforts. As the session wrapped, Evan reflected silently, his steady eyes on the hollow forest fading away. Earth's wilds had taught him to trust evidence over fear, a lesson now spreading to 47 star systems, one corrected file at a time. His hikes through Montana, with their hidden trails and silent warnings, felt like preparation for this cosmic recalibration. Mira turned to the class, her limbs poised. Evan has been instrumental, she said publicly, her voice warm, humility cementing their equality. His insights saved our field from falsehoods. Thank you. The room rippled with agreement, Lyra's glow pulsing blue, Marin smiling. Evan scratched his jaw, smirking. Team effort, he said, his tone light. Next class, we'll tackle why a bear's sniff is worse than its roar. The room laughed, a shared peace settling in, the sound genuine and free. The hollow walls dimmed, star charts spinning lazily as the students filed out, notebooks clutched, ready for whatever the galaxy held, armed with truth, not terror,